to order for Thursday, April 15th. If I could get a roll call, please.
Director Williams?
Here.
Hart? Hartman?
Here.
Nelson?
Here.
Levanino?
Here.
Urig?
Here.
Julian?
Here.
Osborne?
Here.
Waterfield? Here. Parodi?
Here.
Clark? Murillo?
Here.
And Chair Sierra.
Here. Thank you very much.
Oh, Clark's here now.
And
you,
Director
Chair
Clark has joined us. Thank you. Could you please remind participants of remote participation housekeeping?
Thank you, Chair Sierra. Just a couple of Zoom reminders. For all the panelists, please remember to mute your mic when not speaking. If you'd like to comment, please use the raise your hand button. If you're an attendee, you will be in listen-only mode. All attendees will remain in listen-only mode unless unmuted by Sbcag staff to provide public comment. Comments from the public are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The public will not be able to share their video or screen. When public comment is called for on an agenda item, attendees may use the raise your hand button to express desire to provide public comment for that item, and you will be unmuted when it is your turn. For those calling in on the phone, they can dial *9 to raise your hand. Thank you, and that concludes my Zoom reminders.
Thank you very much. If we could get everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We move on to public comment. Is there any public comment? Did we get anything?
Chair Sierra, we've received no public comment, and I see no request to speak.
Okay, no hands up, no.
No hands up.
All righty. Item 4 is approval of the consent calendar. Are there any items that directors would like to have pulled from the consent calendar? I'm looking, I don't see anybody. Okay. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar?
Chair Sierra, we received no public comment for the consent calendar.
Okay. Is there any board discussion on any items on the consent calendar? Then can I get a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Thank you, Director Nelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Salve.
Thank you very much. Director Urig. Okay, roll call.
Director Williams?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Levanino?
Aye.
Urig?
Aye.
Julian?
Aye.
Osborne?
Aye.
Waterfield?
Aye.
Parodi?
Aye.
Clark? I see he's there. Aye. I saw him. Murillo?
Aye.
And Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, could you please read item 5 into the record?
Certainly, Chair Sierra. Item 5, 2021 Cycle Mania Update and Easy Bike Project. Receive a presentation regarding the Easy Bike Program and Cycle Mania in 2021.
All righty. And I guess the presentation is by Kent Epperson today. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Sbcag board. My name is Kent Epperson, and I'm the director of the Traffic Solutions Division at Sbcag. I'm really happy to be here to talk about 2 fun projects that Traffic Solutions is working on this spring. Of course, one is one that you're familiar with, most likely, Cycle Mania, or Bike Month. And then the second is the Easy Bike Project. And I want to actually introduce Nancy Eckert to come up to give that presentation. The Easy Bike Project was actually born out of a conversation that Nancy and I had about a year and a half ago. She was looking to promote e-bikes as a way to encourage more biking to and from school. And it was that idea that gelled into what is Easy Bike Project today. And when Whitney Rush moved over to work under Scott, we brought on Nancy to launch this program for us. And she comes with 10 years of experience doing safe routes to school education through Coast and SB Bike. And she is full of ideas, great ideas. In fact, she came up with the idea of the family walk and roll. When we were all trying to figure out how we could promote bicycling during COVID-19, she came up with a brilliant idea of doing the virtual bike rides in many of our communities. So I'm very happy to have Nancy here tell you about the Easy Bike Project.
Kent, thank you for that great introduction. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here today to talk about the Easy Bike Project. As you are well aware, the goal of Traffic Solutions is to reduce traffic and congestion, to reduce air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions by shifting our way of transportation away from single car driving to buses, trains, walking, and biking. And we believe that if we can get people to test ride an e-bike, that it can legitimize an e-bike as an actual vehicle and be incorporated into people's daily transportation routines. So bikes have always been a traffic solution, but what's happening now is that e-bikes have become a complete game changer. Because hills and sweat are the biggest barriers to people biking for transportation. And e-bikes offer people the ability to glide up hills and to not worry about what they're wearing in terms of special clothing or shoes, to not worry about carrying a few heavy things, maybe even a computer. And so with these factors, along with the speed of travel and ease of parking, have made e-bikes, like I said, a legitimate vehicle for the masses. And e-bikes are a really fun and efficient way to commute. These are some pictures of bike commuters all over the country, some in snow, and it's all while reducing our dependency on oil. And they're a really fun way to get kids to school. I see this every day as I live near elementary schools, where people are using e-bikes now, and when they go into the parking lot, all eyes are on them, and the kids have a lot of fun, and they get the wind in their face on the way. And e-bikes make shopping easy too, because you don't really feel the weight of all the groceries when you have that electric assist. So e-bikes are also a viable way to extend a commute via train or bus. And these are some pictures that people have sent us from Easy Bike participants, because you can get anywhere in town. You can go to a coffee shop or the zoo with kids or to the beach or wherever on an e-bike. It's all accessible to us. And when people realize that and the ease of travel, we can really reduce car trips. So in using cargo bikes, for business purposes and for big cargo is also an option for e-bikes and a great option for businesses. So what's Easy Bike? Easy Bike is a project designed to give people the ability to test ride, to see if it might be something for them. People participate by simply signing up, registering for a bike to use on our website, easybike.org, and they sign up for a weekend, a 5-day loan period where they can take the bike out completely free of charge and see if it might be something for them. We encourage them to go to the market, to do a recreational ride, to ride to work or school, even if they're not going there right now. But it gives people a thorough experience. We equip the bikes with bags, locks, everything that they would need. Many of them have water bottle holders, everything that they would need to be fully functional. And we have found what happens is people are more clear about what they might want to purchase, or if an e-bike is really for them. So we're located at the spot across the street here at 1219 Anacapa Street. And participants pick up their pre-selected e-bikes on a Thursday and return it on a Monday. The long weekend, like I said, gives them a full experience. And you can see here that what we do when they pick up the bike is we first give them a little overview of the bike. We explain how the bike works. We explain how to lock it. Locking is a critical habit that people need to get into because bike theft is real. So what we do is we take the really strong ABIS lock and they wrap it around the actual frame of the bike and then a post, or the frame and a wheel. And then we take the extended cable that you can see there and wrap it around both wheels and then a post or a tree. So the bike is really secure. And I want people to keep our bikes safe, but I also want people to really get into good habits so that their bikes don't get stolen. We also check the seat and the handlebars, make sure that the bike fits the participant really well. And then I also review cycling laws and etiquette with every participant so that they're aware of some common mistakes that people make and also aware of the differences between using a pedal bike and using an e-bike. So what about the bikes? We have a few different categories of bikes. This is the city bike or commuter bike, a lot of people call it. And Trek is a #1 sponsor of ours. They have donated 6 out of our 12 bikes into our fleet. Pretty incredible. You can see the Verve here in the upper left-hand corner, and then the Elant, 2 different models of Trek bikes. And then this bike was donated to us by Santa Barbara Electric Bikes, and it's called the High Bike Trekking. This is also in the commuter or city bike category. And this gentleman took it for some recreational riding, went up to the Ojai Valley Trail. And actually, when he brought it back on Monday, he told me, he says, I already went and bought one and it's coming in tomorrow. That's how effective this program can be. This is one of our newer bikes in the fleet and kind of comes in a different category all of its own. It's a very light bike, so it's more bike-like. This particular one is a fixie. It also comes in a 7-speed. I got a phone call from a friend of mine who has high school students. And that phone call is what led me to contact this company because my friend said, we have got to find a way that I don't have to drive my kids to school. It's stressful and it's making me crazy. And so I went out and I looked for an e-bike that would be most bike-like and attractive for high school and college kids, only to find that there's a wide demographic that wants to ride this bike. So I can see kids riding home from water polo practice or softball practice. You could put a rack on it if you wanted, and relieving parents of that whole shuttling system. These are the folding bikes. Some people really like those smaller wheels and really fat tires. They're really stable on the road. And you can also fold them up so small that they could be a passenger in a car or just more convenient to take someplace in the back of a truck or a van. Or also they just don't take up so much room in a storage space or a garage. They're also the price point bikes, sorry. This is a category in its own. I have one here. It's the Trek Townie Go. It's a cruiser style bike and just a really fun, easy ride, super upright, really convenient for downtown errands and a little more simple riding. And these are our 2 cargo bikes. Cargo bikes are the easiest thing to replace a car with, just because you can load them up with beach stuff, with kids, with groceries, maybe all of the above, and you can really get some good mileage out of them. And so in addition to our 5-day weekend loan, we also offer variety hours. We were finding that some people would rather just come in and ride a bike for 15 minutes Maybe they're familiar with e-bikes. Maybe they're not. Maybe they want to ride one certain bike for an hour, or they want to try 5 different bikes in the fleet. A variety hour gives them the opportunity to do just that. And so they've been really, really successful. And in addition to the variety hours, we have put the B-cycle, the bike share bike, into that part of our fleet so that in a variety hour, somebody could come and say, maybe they don't want to buy their own. Maybe they just want a membership and they want to check it out first. So they're welcome to do that with us as well. And so that is the Easy Bike Project, a place where people can come and test ride a lot of different styles of e-bikes, get a feeling of what kind of style would work for them best in their life, and really have fun with it. People come back and tell me it was life-changing, that they are super excited. Some people come back and they're not interested. Most people come back and they're on a process of trying to figure out what they want. And then some people have purchased them the weekend that they have the bike. So again, thank you for having me. Please tell people, promote the project, and feel free to come to easybike.org and register for a 5-day loan. I'd be happy to service you.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Very exciting. I'd like to invite all of the board members, if you are interested, if you've thought about electric bikes, we'd love to set you up with one. So feel free, give us a call. There'll be opportunities in May for Cyclemania for you to do that, or after in June, the variety hours. And you guys are right here, right? Pop over during a variety hour and we get you on some bikes. So with that, I'll go ahead and shift gears a little bit to Cyclemania. Is it? I thought
Chair Sierra, may I just say something?
Yeah.
This is Director
Of
Hartman.
course, Director Hartman.
Well, I just want to say that there's something exhilarating about these bikes. I can't really explain why, but they're quiet and they're so easy to ride. Gina Fisher in our office has a year pass for the Santa Barbara bikes, and it means that they just need one car in their family. And she comes with a big smile on her face. They're just exquisite. And unless you've tried it, you won't really appreciate why that's the case. But you come, it's something about being in the air, the smells, the moisture in the air. It really just makes you come to work happy. So I think you're encouraging people, especially for the last mile or to use these commuting. And I think they have a tremendous future in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Kent, before you go on, I've got a question up here, and I believe Director Perotti wants to either make a comment or a question too. Director Waterfield, go ahead.
Yes, I'm curious, what is the cost of these bikes if you want to purchase one?
So we carry bikes purposely on kind of the low to medium scale, so they would be very affordable. And our bikes run anywhere between about $900 or about $4,000, depending on the bike itself.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, Director Perotti.
Thank you, Chair Sierra. Well, I just have to say, what a great idea this is. The picture that you showed, Nancy, of the woman with the sweat coming off her hair and trying to ride up a hill, that's me. There's a hill behind my house that's brutal. So I've been talking about an e-bike for years and not being just confused on what I should have, what I shouldn't have. So I think this is a fabulous idea. And thank you. And I will look forward to participating. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Clark, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. We've had a big boom in e-bikes in Carpinteria, and it's very cool. I think there's definitely a place for them, but there has been discussion among our planning commission and city council. Apparently, we've had some e-bike / pedestrian collisions, And we're sort of struggling with why this is. And I am also, I know that they can go pretty fast. And I'm a biciclista, and I'm guilty of what a lot of biciclistas do, which is ignore some of the traffic signals that we're supposed to follow, such as stopping at stop signs. And so because of the speed of these, they're almost like a vehicle, and yet people are treating them like bicycles. So they're going on the sidewalks, and so it's a while there's definitely a place for these, and it's booming and it's good. It's doing a lot of good. I'm just wondering if you've heard of any other problems such as this and how people have dealt with it, and the dealing with it is, we still don't know why these collisions are happening. Thank you.
We do a lot of education before a bike goes out. And I talk to people about, one of the things I say is over communicate like your life depends on it. Because it's really important that we communicate with people. And blinkers are car drivers' way of communication. We see people turning all the time without that communication. It's so important that cyclists and pedestrians learn to communicate with each other as well. And I think infrastructure has been steadily improving. And as it continues to improve, that we have a little more separation between cyclists and walkers. The cyclists that are on the sidewalk, in my opinion, they're trying to use the separated bike path, the separated path that does exist, because people want that separation. So as infrastructure changes and as people learn to go to I always tell people, ride on the quieter roads. When you find yourself on a busy street, go to a less busy street. When you find yourself on San Andreas, go over to Chino. It's super quiet so that we don't have those kinds of collisions.
All righty. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? I don't see any hands raised.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions.
Go ahead, please.
Sure. So, are you starting to get saturation at all yet or how long has this program been going, and are people dying off? Are you getting more people come in? What's that look like?
We're full. We have bikes. We have the majority of our bikes that go out every single weekend. Most people come back and they tell us about all the friends that they told about it. And so we're a long ways away from saturation.
Okay, great. So I guess then that question was going to lead into the question on when that the plan was to bring it up north. So if there's no saturation in sight, I guess this question is for Mr. Epperson. What's the plans on scaling this to other parts of the county?
I was hoping you would ask that question. I wanted to mention that, we're in the spot right now, so we can fine tune the operation. This is a new thing for us, so there's a lot of little details to attend to. But actually during Cyclemania, which I'll talk more about in a moment, we're actually going to do pop-up events in Goleta and in Carpinteria in the South Coast. Then moving in the summer and fall, we'll actually be doing pop-up events in Lompoc, Santa Maria, San Ynez Valley, basically wherever people are interested in this. Because my feeling is actually that the real value of this program is going to be when we penetrate into North County, because I think that the adoption rate for e-bikes is lower in North County, and so there's more education that's needed there.
Yeah, and I think I'd agree that overcoming that hurdle of being able to try them out. I've ridden them. They're great. They may be a low cost option for some families. So even though you're not seeing, I gotta think in maybe some younger families in Santa Barbara, this is just definitely, like Gina's family, this is probably an important part of the of what they have available to make their household work. But I would think in some families it's also kind of an accessory. I think here up in North County, this could definitely be a part of a household's transportation inventory. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Director Nelson. Director Urig has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Has there been any other discussion or any discussion at all trying to get some e-bikes out to our local city's law enforcement? I know that we have a couple of e-bikes out on the Shumash reservation with our deputy out there, but it'd be great if we could have some examples of outfitted law enforcement versions. I know they're a little bit more costly than the 4,000. However, given what Director Clark had mentioned was going on in the city of Carp, I think all of the cities have the problem with bicycles on sidewalks, and the bicycles, whether they're electric or not, are treated as vehicle code violations. So actually, to get a law enforcement officer out there riding instead of in a car, he could pull off and actually cite or at least talk and educate the persons that are on the sidewalks much easier than trying to stop a patrol car and do that. But just a thought out there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Director Urig. I'm not aware of that, but I think that's an excellent question. And I think that would be very appropriate and a good use of an electric bike. So we will look into that and see if there's opportunities. And if you know of any or some contacts that we could talk with, we'd love to follow up on that. Thank you.
Ready, thank you. Hang on I've got Director Julian, Director Williams, and then Director Nelson. So Director Julian?
Yeah, just a comment. Don't forget Guadalupe in this loop of North County. And also, we have a very community-connected public safety element within the police and fire department. And there's been, we've had an actual bicycle donated to the police department, which is a pedal type. But I think this would be a good opportunity for us to be able to connect with the community here in Guadalupe, because we have a lot of folks with kids in the house, and they have to leave their kid, another sibling to take care of the kid. If a family member had this ability to do a quick run to the grocery store, which is only several of them in Guadalupe, and then back, this would be a good opportunity to be able to use something like this. So we'd be very anxious to connect with this program here in Guadalupe.
Thank you, Director Julian. Director Williams?
I just wanted to know if you guys have any suggestions on how to particularly bifurcate our promotion. Meaning, I understand the attraction on weekends. It's good, perhaps in the long run, to make the technology more known and adopted, and maybe just a little more attractive for people to see how fun it is. But for our purposes, the real value is adoption for commuting, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I guess I just want any more suggestions on how to help promote that. Obviously, it's a potentially powerful tool for the last mile problem. Hopefully people understand now that, COVID rates are not any higher among people who take trains and buses than it is over the general population, and that people will come back now that more people are vaccinated. So, do you have any suggestions on how we get around that? Are they compatible with MTD's bus racks, and what other things that we can do to make sure that this integrates with our commute strategies?
I think that really is the key, Director Williams. That we are really trying to focus on the city trips and the urban commute trips, and combining it with transit is a really great, powerful combination, because now you can travel pretty much any distance and you're not restricted to where transit serves. So many of the bikes, I think probably most of them, do fit in the racks. The cargo bikes, the stretch bikes, they would not fit in those racks, and they don't fit in bike lockers either. So those are a little tricky.
Well, neither do the normal non-electric cargo bikes. I've tried it before, unfortunately. But also, I'll let you answer the question, but also just, this is a perfect solution for people who live, say, in San Roque, right? Who commute downtown because, okay, going down on a bike is no big deal. You don't even get sweaty going downhill if you work in the downtown, but going back up is quite a bit of work. So, it's a perfect kind of solution for situations like that, whether it's last mile or total commute. So what can we do to highlight that?
If I might just tag on for the train as well, if you could meet people at their commuter destination or launch site, that might be a way at some further down the line promotion.
To answer a bit more of that question, one of the strategies that we'll be employing, no pun intended here, but is to employ the employers. Once people start getting back to work, we believe there's going to be a great market to do pop-up ride events, demo events at the location of large employment sites. And so I think that really gets to the heart of the commuter, and having them have the opportunity to actually use the bike in their real life commute will be key. So I think that would be one of the ways to respond to Director Williams' question.
All righty, thank you. Do we have any public comment on this, Terry?
Chair Sierra, we have no public comment.
Okay, then why don't we get Mr. Epperson to move forward?
Ms. Bianchi Clement would like to make a comment.
Okay. Ms. Bianchi Clement.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly mention, and was reminded, appreciate Gus Corey's on the call today too. We do have AB 117, I believe, that is making its way through the Assembly and through appropriations that allows for some rebates associated with purchasing an electric bike. So we're so familiar with all these incentives that we have on rebates to buy electric vehicles, but nothing exists right now for electric bikes. And so this is something certainly on our legislative platform. And we don't know what the final amount, the original proposal was a 10 million, but that's definitely making its way through the state legislature. And just wanted to make sure you're aware of that with the question that you had, Director Nelson.
Terrific. All righty. Kent, why don't you move on with Cyclemania?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and board's members. Of course, Cyclemania is our bike month in the South Coast, and this will be our 11th year doing Cyclemania. Cyclemania is a culmination of community-run bike events that we promote under the umbrella Cyclemania. We give little mini grants to some of those organizers to help cover some of their basic costs. And it's all about celebrating the bike. And of course, last year, unfortunately, we had to cancel Cyclemania due to COVID-19. But we're very happy that we'll be able to have a Cyclemania again this year. It's going to look different than years past. It's going to be a combination of some virtual online discussions and panel presentations, as well as some small group rides and some small outdoor activities. This year, we're breaking the month into 4 themed weeks. And the first week is Ready, Set, Go. So we'll have a couple online presentations, a bicycle skills class, as well as an opportunity for us to pitch easy bikes and our fleet. The second week is around adventure and world travel. In years past, we've had slide presentations of locals that have traveled around the world and done bike adventures, and so we'll feature one or more of those presentations that week. That week also is Mother's Day weekend, and so there will be a Mother's Day ride as well. Then we move into week 3, and that's kids and families. We have an event that we'll be offering called Biking with Littles. And it's really getting at some of the challenges and opportunities that families can learn the skills and the equipment that they need to ride safely with their family. And then we'll conclude with week 4. It'll focus on bicycle-friendly communities. Many of us have witnessed a lot of changes in our streetscapes and around the world with the increase in bicycling that we're seeing. And so we want to feature some of the trends in bicycle infrastructure and what's happening locally in terms of bike improvements. A few other things I want to highlight. For every Tuesday, we're going to have a taco easy bike variety hour ride. So this would be a great way. It'll be a lunch hour ride, and we'll have 12 people that will check out the bikes ahead of time. And then during the ride, they can exchange bikes if they want to test ride multiple bikes. And then we'll end at a taco joint, different taco joint each week. We'll also, as I mentioned, the pop-up bike demo events in Carpinteria and Goleta will also be part of the festivities, ending with a community e-bike ride, which anybody who has an e-bike ride will be invited to that ride at the very end of the month. We also will be featuring Wheelie Wednesdays. Some of you probably are aware of the 5 series of Wheelie Wednesdays that we did at City College in parking lot 3. Those were very well received and a lot of fun, and we're going to continue doing 4 of those in the month of May at the City College, the same parking lot, ending with a wheelie contest. The SB Bike will actually be hosting an outdoor bike-in movie at BC Centro. Let's see what other ones I want to highlight here. I think those are the big ones. And we don't have our full calendar yet posted to the website, but we just launched the new website. So cyclemania.org is our brand new website, and within by Monday or so, we'll have the calendar items on the website. And so we look forward to seeing you out on your bikes in May. And please give me a call if you want an opportunity to actually be at one of these events. We'd love to have you be there. And with that, I can open up any questions about Cyclemania.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions or comments regarding Cyclemania from the board? I don't see hands up. I know this is something we look forward to every year. Do we have any public that want to make a comment on Cyclemania?
Chair Sierra, we received no public comment requests.
All righty. Well, this was a presentation, so no action is required. And I want to thank you both very much for coming to let us know about the Easy Bike project and Cyclemania for 2021. I'm glad it's coming back full force. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Item 6, Madam Clerk, will you read item 6 into the record?
Certainly, Chair Sierra. Item 6 is Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure. Receive a presentation on the draft Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure and provide direction to Sbcag on public comment opportunities on draft plan.
All righty. And this presentation is by Sarkis Kachek and Lauren Bianchi-Clement. Okay.
Sorry, Madam Chair, we're just shuffling seats down here.
There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair, directors, good morning. Today, Lauren Bianchi-Clement and I are going to give your board an update on the development of the draft Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure. We also have our state legislative advocate, Mr. Gus Corey, on the meeting as well to provide additional context and to help us answer any questions. I did want to start out by saying that we do have a series of attachments in the staff report, which include the PowerPoint presentation for today, a policy brief that the Central Coast Coalition developed on CAPTI, and then the letter that we have submitted previously. So with that, this is an important conversation with our board members today because with the development of this draft climate action plan, we're going to be seeing some potential changes in the way that we fund and deliver transportation projects, not just in California, in our region. And so we're giving you an update on where we are with CAPTI and then our analysis on the impact for us. Lauren will cover some of the legislative and budget changes that we're expecting, and then we'll also look at how the future funding cycles will be impacted and input that's been received by the state thus far. Next slide, please. The draft CAPTI was birthed from the governor's executive order in 1919. This aims to leverage state funding to help deliver on some of the climate goals that the governor has. And this looks at reducing VMT or vehicle miles traveled, reducing congestion, all the while balancing the different goals of California related to health, safety, and equity. Next slide, please. CAPTI has identified several funding programs that the state is going to look to help meet the goals of CAPTI. And these are a lot of programs that Sbcag and our local partners have historically relied upon using our local dollars to leverage state dollars to help deliver on projects. Some of the programs include the Active Transportation Program, which our local agencies lean on a lot. There are new programs that were created under Senate Bill 1, like Solutions for Congested Corridors, which Sbcag relied upon in the first cycle of Senate Bill 1 programs to help deliver some of the first segments for the Highway 101 corridor. And so these are prior programs, and then these are new programs that were supplemented under Senate Bill 1. And so it's really critical for us to see the impact on these programs as we use our local dollars to leverage state dollars. Next slide, please. Sorry, this slide's a little bit hard to read, but we got this from the state, and this is the timeline for development of CAPTI and for implementation. Sbcag staff has been engaged in the development of CAPTI back since the executive order occurred and the state discussed having the development of the plan. So that's been since 2019. We did want to mention that we've been engaging TTAC on the process, and we also did provide your board with an update in January on this. And so since then, the state has rolled out the draft plan. So more information on the schedule and next steps is later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. What is CAPTI? CAPTI is a framework for the state to align investments to meet those goals that I mentioned, with an emphasis on safety, health, and equity, and also focused on fix it first. There are going to be expected changes to funding and project delivery, which we're monitoring, and the state wants to have a balanced approach in terms of delivering on CAPTI. Next slide, please. In terms of the framework, there are 10 principles for the vision, and then from that stem 7 strategies and 30 actions. Those actions are included in the draft plan, so I won't go into too much detail on those, but as I mentioned, we're going to be monitoring how this impacts our ability to do business moving forward. Obviously, I think in our region and other parts of the state, we feel as though we're already meeting a lot of these state goals and delivering on a lot of the priorities. So we're stressing that with the state. But there's opportunities there potentially for active transportation, rail, and transit that we're definitely cognizant of that we are also monitoring as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of the framework, as I mentioned, there's a focus on amplifying an integrated rail and transit network. So like as I mentioned, there's opportunities there for us on the Central Coast in terms of rail, in terms of enhancing the rail network. There's also a focus on the bicycle and pedestrian network. As Mr. Epperson mentioned earlier, there's been a big demand on the bike and pedestrian network, and so there are going to be opportunities there. In terms of funding, there have been discussions about enhancing the active transportation program, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which for our region, we have many projects that are submitted annually for those programs. And then there's finally a look at how to expand the zero emission vehicle network. And so the state, through the governor, has included a large, substantial potential investment in the zero emission vehicle network, which for us, we're still developing on the Central Coast. As your board is aware, we did submit a Caltrans planning grant a couple months ago to do a strategy from San Benito and Santa Cruz County down to Ventura County. So if we are funded through that planning grant, that could be an excellent opportunity for our region to build on the network. Next slide, please. Oh, you can go on, sorry. There's a lot of animations in here. You can go through all the different, there's 7 animations. But in terms of the investment framework, as I mentioned, there's a focus on equity and safety and promoting projects. There you go, 2 more. That there's a focus on promoting projects that do not increase the passenger vehicle travel. And so for us, historically, we've had a lot of projects that have been in that direction. We still have quite a few projects that we need to deliver on. And so this is going to be an interesting part of the plan that we're looking at closely. These are the 7 strategies. So it's looking at sustainability, recovery for the economy by looking at the ZEV infrastructure. There's also a focus on equity. And so the state has been taking a big charge on making sure that equity is addressed in our state. So there are various programs occurring currently on that. And then also looking at resilience through the transportation system in terms of transportation projects. Next slide, please. With that said, so those are the slides that we got through the state, and those were the slides that were presented through the various workshops thus far. So we wanted to give you a flavor for what's been presented. For our region, we feel as though we meet the goals of CAPTI. We have been doing that. There's going to be opportunities, like I said, for rail, transit, and bike ped. There's been discussions of anywhere from injecting $250 million to $2 billion in the active transportation program. We're going to see how the state wants to treat that. I think initially there was support for funding all projects that were submitted under the last cycle, but I think that they're going to try to look at some kind of cutoff score for ATP. But the good news is that for our region, we actually, while we only got 1 project funded from last cycle, we had many projects that scored very well. So we feel as though that we're in a good position on that. But I think the biggest focus for us is on our ability to deliver on the Santa Barbara US 101 multimodal corridor. We still have 2 segments left in Montecito and Santa Barbara to complete the Highway 101 project and complete the high occupancy vehicle lane. And so we need to rely on the state for that partnership. But we're not just looking at that, we're looking at projects that are waiting to be delivered in Measure A after the 101 project. And so those projects are the Goleta Overpass project, as well as the North County projects, and those include the Santa Maria interchanges. And so those projects are waiting on the 101 to be finished in order to be delivered. And so upcoming is going to be the next cycle of Senate Bill 1 competitive programs. And so that's when we will be seeking funding to complete the corridor. So we're trying to see how the recommendations from this plan will influence the guidelines for that next cycle. Next slide, please. So I think Lauren and I were going to tag team this one a little bit. As I mentioned, we've submitted comment letters and participated in workshops. One thing I wanted to mention on this slide is that we have stressed that one size does not fit all with CAPTI in California. There are still rural and small urban areas like ours where we have to look at certain types of highway projects. While they may be deemed capacity expansion, they still are important for the state transportation system. When I-5 closes, traffic gets directed to Highway 101 in our area, and so we want to make sure that we have a network that accommodates that. We still have critical safety and freight projects that need to be completed that also help meet state goals. And so we've mentioned that also. So Lauren, I'll turn it over to you on the comments that we've submitted thus far.
Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so as I'm one more slide after, but we'll go back to, yeah, we covered this. Next one. Okay, so great. So as Sarkis had mentioned, we have been engaged since before the public engagement process began with the state, most notably through our legislative advocacy efforts, as well as our partnership with the Central Coast Coalition. And as a quick reminder, the Central Coast Coalition is made up of 6 regional transportation agencies from Santa Barbara to Santa Cruz to San Benito. The coalition formed in 2010 to raise awareness of the US 101 on the Central Coast as a major economic asset in the state and the nation, and to encourage investment in this region. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and thank Chair Sierra, Directors Hart and Patino, who's not here today, for their leadership and participation in the annual Central Coast Coalition Sacramento Legislative Advocacy Day that took place virtually for the first time ever on March 12th and was coordinated and supported by our legislative lobbyist, Gus Corey, who we mentioned is with us today to support any questions associated with CAPTI. There were more than 25 coalition representatives who participated in this advocacy day and 7 meetings with our state legislative representatives, as well as CalSTA's Chief Deputy Secretary for Rail and Transit. The day was jam-packed with important work, and the heart of our advocacy was CAPTI. Recognizing and appreciating the governor's goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled, and the encouragement, as Sarkis mentioned, additional investments in public transportation and active transportation projects, and voicing our support that while CAPTI serves as an important document to work collectively on these efforts, for it to be successful, we need to be creative, flexible, and have pragmatic solutions to account for the unique opportunities and challenges that face each region. At this point, for the purposes of CAPTI and how it relates to the legislature, all eyes are on what the plan's influence is on funding. So the current CAPTI draft encourages identifying, seeking new funding opportunities, but still calls for investments to be made from traditional state funding sources and the Senate Bill 1 competitive programs. So we're watching the governor's budget via the May revise that's coming out next month. So in January, the governor proposed budget stated that there'll be an estimated of $1.5 billion of a reduction of gas tax receipts through fiscal year 24 and 25. So attributed to the drop of the fuel consumption as a result of the pandemic. We're looking at recent proposals, as Sarkis mentioned, to fund transportation through the general fund, which hasn't happened since 2009. So Assemblymember Laura Friedman, the chair of the Transportation Committee, is requesting $250 million to fund ATP, which could help our cities and counties projects that were submitted in Cycle 5. We've been advised that this should be considered a ceiling versus a floor in terms of available funds from the general fund, so that new type of funding that we referenced. And then also we're watching the state's use of the federal funds under Biden's plan. So kind of what is the state going to be doing with the resources that are going to be coming from the federal government versus going directly to local governments. And then the impacts on the existing funding programs that Sbcag and our local partners rely upon to leverage dollars to deliver priority projects. I heard a CTC commissioner express a willingness to help grow the pie over fighting over crumbs, especially when we think about how hard many of us worked to bring about Senate Bill 1 and what everyone had to do to fight back Prop 6 in November 2016. If we take a step back for a moment, Sbcag has been thinking and taking action on multimodal options for years. As an example, our agency fought for the creation of the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program called TIRSIP in cap and in cap and trade to fund passenger rail, and augmenting TIRSUP and the creation of the state rail assistance also in Senate Bill 1. We work on bike and ped projects and bus services. So in your attachment to the staff report is a policy brief we created for the Legislative Advocacy Day, which lists a number of policy opportunities and solutions. And in addition to input through the budgetary process, there are more public workshops have been called for outreach and engagement with broader industries and different voices, including the business community, like our chambers, labor, and more. So CTC has added 2 workshops in April 20th and 23rd, and another one coordinated through the California Department of Public Health on April 22nd. So that will be provided to Margie to share through her Friday updates and shared through Sbcag's public channels. And with that, is there anything else that you would like to add, Sarkis, on that? So I'm going to turn it back over to you before questions.
And,
All right,
sorry.
Go ahead, Sarkis.
Just
Go ahead.
so thank you to Lauren. And so we're joined today by Mr. Corey. So if he has any additional context you wanted to provide, but then the 3 of us will be ready to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarkis and Lauren. Good morning, Chair Sierra, Gus Corey, Legislative Advocate, Court Consulting. Pleasure to be with you this morning. Just a couple tidbits. I think what we really want to emphasize is that I think, as Lauren had mentioned, is we've been at the forefront of thinking about climate change and climate resiliency, and being conscientious of wanting to make the multimodal investments. But one size doesn't fit all, as Mr. Kochek mentioned. And so I think we need all modes to address congestion within the county. And we simply don't have the same density as other regions in the state. While we've been promoting expanded rail service, transit use in the county, perhaps seeking more flexibility with the usage of the SB1 funds instead of prioritizing one mode over the other might be more of a pragmatic solution to kind of help us maintain our competitiveness and address lifeline arterial routes such as the 101. You know, I recollect back in 2016 when the state had a $754 million deficit for the State Transportation Improvement Program, and we were still successful then in being one of 4 projects statewide in receiving $60 million to address phase 3 of the project. And then, as Sarkis had mentioned, in SB1, we were the 2nd-ranked project in the state. And so our hope is that there will be a commitment to protect prior investments so that we can maximize the return on those investments and continue to leverage our local sales tax dollars so that, you know, we can maintain our fiduciary responsibility to the voters. And there's also other elements here which have been touched on a bit, because it goes beyond transportation infrastructure. I think we've seen with the pandemic that telecommuting has become a viable option. So the legislature is also possibly contemplating making a significant investment into broadband infrastructure. There's discussion about an $8 billion proposal, but then the president has $100 billion set aside in his prospective proposal. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then hopefully one thing that, you know, we've been advocating for, and again, I want to echo the appreciation for you, Madam Chair, and Director Hart and Patino participating in the Central Coast Coalition Lobby Day, about trying to prioritize getting some of the rebates, because our constituents have to drive further than most. Assemblymember Cunningham had actually reminded me that folks in the district drive on average about 23 miles is a daily commute. And so if we're really going to make a dent on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, then we need to continue to work with Caltrans in deploying more zero emission infrastructure, charging stations, and we very much appreciate that partnership. But our hope is that we can polish off the 101 and maintain our competitiveness. And so we just want to be sensitive to allowing you, again, to honor the will of the voters here as we go forward and as CAPTI is being contemplated. So appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. And just a quick note on process. So as Lauren had mentioned, the May revision to the governor's budget should come out by May 14th. We should receive more information in the form of budget language, which CalSTA, the California State Transportation Agency, is hoping to put together by June 30th, because there has to be statutory change to SB1, particularly since a lot of these funds are constitutionally protected. And then subsequently later this fall, the guideline process for Senate Bill 1, the Cycle 3 competitive programs that were referenced, those would have to be altered too in order to fully implement CAPTI. So again, I'll stop right there and appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining the group today. I appreciate it. Does anybody on the board have questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Director Hart.
Director Hart, go ahead.
I just really appreciate this presentation today from all the staff, really raising kind of the alarm bell about the potential consequence of this change in strategic approach from the state. It's unfortunate it's being framed this way, because I think it really is clear and true that we were talking about integrating multimodal transportation from the very beginning of the conception of the 101 project. It is defined as the lane and the train, and it only uses those two words just because those were, the biggest elements of it. But it's always included, pedestrian facilities, rail enhancement, and the carpool lane, which is really facilitates high occupancy vehicles and transit. So to find ourselves in this situation where the state's going to shift the goalposts, after massive local investment, state investment, and so close to finishing the 101 project with 2 miles. I mean, you literally can see the end of the project. And to have the potential where the funding dries up here at the end is catastrophic. It is really unimaginable. And I think you are messaging this exactly right, that we are not in conflict with the goals. These are completely aligned. There is no tension. We are building a 21st century transportation infrastructure that respects the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and our project fits all of that criteria. It is a bottom-up, bring all the voices to the table plan that was conceived that way, and we got to be really strong and loud and aggressive in our leadership in making this point, that because there is an element here that probably goes unstated, but it's pretty obvious that there is a tension here, the long-standing tension in the state legislature between the political influence of the major metropolitan areas and the rest of the state. That's where all the voters, that's where all the legislators get elected, is in these two areas. Their situation and circumstances and urban design is very different than the rest of the state. And if policy is going to be driven by, the folks with the most votes win, that is not equitable and fair. Our taxpayers are paying dollars into the state system. We are bringing our local taxpayer dollars to investments in the transportation system, and we need a fair and equitable allocation system that respects our circumstances here in Santa Barbara County and gets us a seat at the table. So I can't say in strong enough terms, pull in all the chits, be aggressive, as you are, participate in all these workshops, get our voice heard, because if we're stuck trying to figure out how to finish the last 2 miles of a $300 million highway project on only local dollars, I don't even want to say it out loud.
Alrighty. Thank you, Director Hart, for that uplifting message. Unfortunately, you're right. Any other comments or questions?
Chair Sierra, this is Director Hartman.
Yes, go ahead, Director Hartman.
I was very struck by how much money is likely to come for broadband and how our county doesn't really have a center for planning broadband. And I think it is an Sbcag interest if we can reduce commuting and reduce wear and tear on our roads and greenhouse gas emissions by encouraging more people to work from home. But broadband is an issue, and we don't have, as far as I know, any shovel-ready projects. We don't have any plans. I know that the North County Econ Alliance has been working in this direction towards getting some grants for rural areas. But I just raise it that this is a big hole, a big gap. And I don't know how collectively we address it, but just wanted to take this opportunity to flag it.
Thank you. Director Nelson?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Director Hartman mentioned and say, absolutely. I think Sbcag is the entity. These things with broadband are cross-jurisdictional. There's definitely a transportation component. And so I'd definitely be interested in that moving forward.
All righty. Thank you. Anybody else? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Terry, do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair Sierra, we've received no public comment or request to speak.
All righty. Then I would like to thank Sarkis, Lauren, and Gus. Mr. Curry, it's good to see you. Can't touch you, but it's nice to see you, and thank you for being part of this. Again, this is a presentation, and therefore no action is required. So thank you very much. Madam Clerk, will you please read item 7 into the record?
Thank you, Chair Sierra. Item 7 is the draft fiscal year 2021-22 overall work program and budget. 7A, review and comment on the draft fiscal year 2021-22 Sbcag budget, which will be considered for adoption at the May 20th, 2021 board meeting. 7B, conduct a hearing to accept public comment on the draft fiscal year 2021-22 overall work program and budget.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Kern, I believe you're leading this one.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is our annual opportunity to talk about Sbcag and what we do and why we do it and how we do it. So this is a presentation that I gave to the executive committee at their meeting last month. And this will be, if all goes well, this will be on your agenda for next month for adoption. So I wanted to give you an overview of the overall work program and our budget for the proposed fiscal year 2021-22. Next slide, please. So everything we do is to help achieve our mission at Sbcag and the vision that the board has adopted for us. So hopefully you'll see that connection as we go forward. Next slide, please. So given this opportunity, I do like to review what has happened over the previous year and all the accomplishments that we had, even with COVID in our midst. We still had some major milestones achieved for the agency, and I want to celebrate that. Next slide, please. So, it's really hard to have a ribbon cutting virtually, but we basically did. We had a press conference, and we spatially distanced and had our masks and had a celebration for the Linda Casitas Pass project opening. I think this happened in early June of the 2020. So this was a way to celebrate a completion of a major project in Carpinteria. So thank you, Director Hart and Director Williams. And Caltrans Director Tim Gubbins as well participated, as well as my staff, in this event to celebrate a major project getting done. So that's always a fun thing to have happen for an agency. Next slide, please. And then we also started a new project. So back to back, we had a ribbon cutting and now a groundbreaking. And we celebrated this groundbreaking via video to make it COVID friendly. And I and the city manager from Carpinteria and Tim Gubbins and Director Williams participated in a video explaining what's happening in the Summerland project and all the good things and improvements that are made in that area. Next slide, please. And then in the planning realm, we had several major accomplishments. We did our regional transportation plan outreach for the Connected 2050 We're currently working on the chapters of this document for adoption in August, but that workshop and that outreach happened in 2020. And again, we had to shift gears and make it virtual. We used some innovative technology and was able to do simultaneously interpretation and translation in Spanish. So it was a dual language workshop. So that worked out pretty well. And we had great participation. So doing things virtually is not always bad. And when it's accessible to people and at a time that they're willing to take an hour or so out of their day, we did it at the lunchtime hour as well as in the evening. And I think we had over 100 participants at the lunchtime one and maybe 50 or so in the evening one. And then we also adopted the San Ynez Valley Traffic and Circulation and Safety Study with the outreach that we did with that as well, virtually. The San Ynez River Trail Alignment Study was also completed. And the Guadalupe to Gaviota Coast Trail routes plan was also accomplished. So a lot's happened this year in planning, and you'll see the results of the RTP that I mentioned earlier at your August meeting. Moving on. And our local Measure A projects, we had several projects completed. The project in the top left-hand corner is from the Lompoc Safe Routes to Schools. We also had the Guadalupe pedestrian improvements, which is the right top corner. The Auburn Trail is the left bottom corner. Rehabilitation in the county, right by my house that I live in. So I walk this path almost every day. So thank you, county, for making this happen. And last but not least, the Fairview Pedestrian Connection Project in the city of Goleta. So our Measure A dollars are working at a local level to get things done, and we really appreciate these accomplishments. So next slide, please. Traffic solutions. You got a great overview of what Ken is doing, but this past year he had to really shift gears with all the cancellations that we had of all the open street celebrations that we had scheduled. All those got canceled, as well as Cyclemania. So we changed course with Ken as the lead on this. The family walk and roll, which was mentioned this morning, to promote people getting out with their families and checking out routes that they wouldn't normally check out in a safe environment. Cycle September was a virtual where you ride your bike and you log your rides, which I did several times as well, just to get people out and motivate them to use their bikes in any way they can to make their trips to the grocery store or to wherever they're going. And then the Easy Bike program, which you heard all about this morning, and that was a kickoff and worked very well for this environment that we're in. And actually, this was early in the COVID. We did 4 telecommuting webinars to promote telecommuting and educate people on how to better utilize this mode to get their work done. And those were very well attended as well, and they're still available online for people to look at if they want to educate themselves about telecommuting. And then next slide, please. We also tried to keep our staff connected, which was very challenging under COVID. We had several staff meetings virtually and trying to keep that communication going between our staff and our connections. And then the next slide is our holiday celebration. We had a trivia contest where we all broke up into rooms and competed in trivia, and so that was a lot of fun. So we're trying to do things differently in a safe way and keep our people connected in some way or manner. Okay, next slide, please. So getting to the work program. Our work program is required by federal law that we identify what we intend to spend our our federal planning dollars on and how we intend to accomplish the federal goals and objectives that they set out for us in planning and programming, what have you. But we use it even broader. We use the overall work program for the entire agency, even those things are not funded by our federal planning dollars. But it really helps to identify what we intend to do and how we intend to pay for that, and also as a management tool of managing our staff and resources as we go throughout the year. So I've had this my entire career as a document that I've used to manage an agency, and it works very well and can be replicated in other agencies if they so desire. But I've always found it very helpful for me as a manager of an agency. So in the overall work program, next slide, sorry, I'm getting ahead of you. It identifies our priorities by work elements. And I assign staff to those staff months, person months, as well as budget to accomplish each of those work elements. And it's a fairly thick document that we put together every year. Next slide. But at the very beginning of the document, we included this table, which identifies all the goals and priorities by division for the agency. And these tasks may be separate work elements in the document, or they may be included within a larger work element. But these are our overall objectives for the year. And I thought this was a very succinct way to communicate that to the board and in this presentation. But I don't expect you to read this, but yeah. So moving on. We cannot do what we do without our partnerships with our local agencies. So I just want to give a little shout out to all the city and county staff and the city managers and the CEO of the county as well. Their input and participation in what we do makes it work, and we couldn't do it without them. So being member jurisdictions means something, and we appreciate that participation every step of the way. And I just want to reiterate the value that brings to our agency. So the next slide, thank you. As we've talked about over and over and over, almost every meeting has something to do with the Highway 101 project, multimodal corridor project. It is our number one priority to get it funded and built. So we are currently in the implementation mode of project construction mode for A, B, and C, as you all know. And our goal is to fund D&E over the next, in the next funding cycle that we have available to us. So a lot of effort goes into this, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and meetings that we all go to advocate for our needs. And so a lot of effort is put into this, and that's reflected in the overall work program. Next slide. Our planning for the future is one of our main missions of the agency. And so we do that through our regional transportation plan, which you'll see adopted in August, like I mentioned, and the regional housing needs assessment process, which is also in its final stages as well. So we plan to accomplish those two major connections that the state has made through SB 375, made a requirement between the RTP, how we're providing transportation, how we're planning for our housing, how we're reaching our greenhouse gas emission goals, and it's all identified in our sustainable community strategy, which is included in the regional transportation plan. So all that comes together in this adoption of this plan, which is happening in August. And so in implementing that plan, we also have the priority, which I actually have another slide, but it is all connected, is implementing the Clean Air Express and getting the lane and the train done. So all these things are interconnected and identified in our regional planning process. Next slide, please. And having funding locally to help pay for these missions and goals and objectives is critical. So Measure A, we can't celebrate this enough, has made all of our visions and missions possible. The leveraging that you'll see in this budget is incredible of how much Measure A has brought into this community in this region. We need to do a total of that, but I'll show you what it is for this year, and it's pretty astounding. So this year, we're also going to be looking at our financing options for our cash flow. That's going to come to a head this fall. So we need to look at the TIFIA loan, and you'll see that through your agendas as well. But our main goals with the Measure A is leveraging state and federal funding. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. And keeping our Measure A committee actively informed of what's going on. And so that's part of our program for the upcoming year. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Clean Air Express, under Scott Spalding's leadership, is looking at continuing our service and providing our regional transit facility, moving forward on that, and acquiring newer buses to us to help continue that service into the future. And then the last priority that I'm going to mention in this presentation is getting the peak hour train reestablished. This was so unfortunate with COVID that it got canceled or rescheduled or whatever we want to call it, but we need to get this train back, and we need to expand on this train as we move forward. So we'll present options to you through the network integration study that you will soon see of how peak hour train can grow from where it was. Okay. Now we're moving on to the numbers in the budget. I always think that this is pretty astounding number. Our budget for an agency our size is pretty big. $51 million is coming through our agency on an annual basis. And so you can see the various funding sources that contribute to that 51 million. The pretty big part of that funding is discretionary grants. So we get funding through the state, through the active transportation, through the TIRSIP program, through the Federal Transit Administration's programs, through some state transit programs, and our housing program. So all that accumulates almost to 10 million discretionary grants that is coming into our budget. Okay. So this is so the budget's going to be broken up into several different functions. The general fund function is basically funding our staff and our operations of the agency. So the majority of these funds are state and federal resources that we get on an annual basis. And then our local Measure A contributes also, as well as our local transportation funds for planning also is contributed in this general fund, as well as other funds from the other budgets that I'm going to be talking about today. Okay, next slide, please. So these are our expenses over the next year. Almost 3.5 million, or almost 4 million of that is salaries and benefits. And so I'll break that down in the next slide a little deeper. And also our professional services of 1.5 million. And some administrative expenses as well. But you can see that professional services is also a huge part of our budget. Okay, next slide. So the almost $4 million in proposed salary and benefits includes our 21 positions that we currently have funded. Not all those positions are filled at this time. We have a vacancy of Mary MJ who just retired. So we do have a vacancy. It does include an increase of 5.6% over the prior year, but we're not proposing a cost of living increase in this budget. What we are going through is a salary compensation and classification study right now. This was included in the strategic plan for Sbcag, that we do this on every 5 years or so. So that study is happening now. We have a consultant on board that's reviewing our job descriptions and our salaries and comparing that to other agencies throughout the state. And so that will be presented to the executive committee in the next month or so. But we set aside a 5% budget for implementing that survey if it's warranted. So that will be coming to the board as a future action as we go, but we're including it in the budget just as a placeholder until we have official approval from this board.
Excuse me, Ms. Kern, I have a question from Director Nelson.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so I make sure I understand that. So 5.6% increase, but 5% of that increase is just a set aside at this point. So it's really only a 0.6 increase. Is that what I'm understanding?
Let's go to the next slide because it gives a little more detail on that. So the normal merit increases that we have is about 14,000. The routine benefit increases is the retirement, which we have no control over. So the compensation study on salary, we set aside 114,000, and the compensation study for the benefits, we set aside 42,000. So those are a breakdown of the difference between the previous budget and the current budget.
Thank you.
And I guess
Madam
Chair? I'm sorry.
Certainly. Is this Director William or?
It's Director
Lavanino? Oh,
thank you.
Please.
Can you put that slide back up? I'm struggling with this one. So I thought there was a set aside that if the study shows that a COLA is warranted, am I understanding right?
Yeah.
That there's like a bank that then once the study's done, you would go back and there'd be an increased compensation, or is the set aside to pay for the study?
No, the studies already was in the current year's budget. So with the
Okay.
studies is happening, the 114,000 and the 42,000 are included in this is what's being set aside for implementation.
Okay.
So
Thank
if
you.
the
That's what
board
that's
decides
what-
to implement that's where we would get those resources. But that's a future decision that I want to make clear that's not being implemented until we have your approval.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I had one more question too. This is Director Hart.
Director Hart.
Do we know what the traditional COLA metric that we use, I think is the Southern California cost
Yeah.
of living adjustment, do we know what that number is?
Martha's nodding her head, so let's have her answer that. I get to see her in this Zoom.
Thank you, Director Hart. Currently, it's about 1%. So I think Margie did mention at the executive committee level that if we don't move forward with the compensation study results, that she may come back with at least what that is for staff for implementation.
And what would that number be?
It was about 1.2%.
No, but I mean the actual dollar figure from, if you plug that into this slide, would that be 1.2% of 3.6 or 99?
So
I'd have to.
Okay, I can do that math. If that's the math, I can.
24,000? Because I'm looking at salaries at 2.4 million. Mental math calculator, who has it? 1% of 2.4.
Okay, thank you.
Is that 24?
It's about $30,000.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next slide. I do want to show that, this is our org chart. I really want to emphasize, we only have 20 people on staff. I feel like we're a small agency that gets a lot of things done with what we have. And this is our major asset that we have in our agency, is the people that work for Sbcag and advocates for the mission and the goals that established by the board. So this is our major asset. So I just want to make that point. Okay, moving on to our other budgets. The SAFE program is a separate standalone budget. So the revenues is from the vehicle license fee, which is $1 per vehicle that is collected by DMV that then gets allocated to Sbcag or through our SAFE program. So we are budgeting $735,000 out of that program for this year's budget, and the expenses are on the next slide with staff support for the SAFE program, the professional services, and we do use a pretty big portion of this budget to support traffic solutions and everything they do to promote alternative modes and reducing congestion on our highways. So next slide, please. Moving on to the Clean Air Express budget. We have 2.5 million identified in revenue, and we're seeing some other revenues coming in through the State Transportation Development Act by the county giving us some funding, and some other state funding sources, including, is that on my list here? Yes, it is. We got 38,300 from Proposition 1B. We got $703,500 from the State of Good Repair. We got $30,000 from the State Transit Assistance Fund, and from LC Top, we received 5,000. So overall, and then we also received some federal resources through the COVID and CARES Act that's happened. 600,000 from COVID 5307 from our urbanized areas that were able to allocate some funding to Clean Air Express from the money that they got through COVID legislation, and the CARES 5311, which is for rural transit, 262,000. So we're seeing some more resources coming into Clean Air Express, which is really helping with our budgets and balancing and making our cash flow work. So where is it? I got to scroll down or scroll up here. So our ending cash balance for Clean Air Express is 1.4 million. So this is, I think, a first time for Clean Air Express that we've had such a healthy cash balance. But I do want to state that we did receive a loan from Measure A when Sbcag took over from Lompoc to deal with cash flow, because we had to have cash in the bank to pay our bills. So we did take a loan of 1.5 million. I think in 2017 is when we did that. So that 1.5 technically is owed to Measure A. So it's still, but we're where we should be, at least, we're breaking even now. We're rather than taking from our fund balance. So this year is adding 559,000 to our cash balance in the Clean Air Express budget. So this is looking better than what we've seen in the past years. So next slide is our expenses. So you can see a little bit off the top for staff resources. The majority of our budget of the 2.5 million, almost 1.5 of that is professional services. And then in the remaining balance is also basic expenses, fuel, getting our buses, the transit facility that we talked about, and other direct expenses. So the majority of this budget is outgoing expenses that we pay to make the service happen. Okay. Okay, and our last budget, I think this is our last one, is our Measure A budget. And basically, this is the framework we've used throughout the life of Measure A. We take funding off the top, and then we divvy it up between north and south, and almost half of the money goes to local jurisdictions for street and road purposes. But there are some competitive programs as well, but those are also divvied up north and south. But I just want to reiterate that for some of our new members, that this is the framework for Measure A that we use every year in our budgets. The next slide shows what our revenue is in the program for Measure A. And you can see the one square that says 34% is Measure A. And look at the other slide there where it's almost half of the budget for Measure A is leveraging. 48% of the money that Measure A is bringing in is coming from other sources. So I think that so $13 million, or almost $13.8 million in Measure A revenue is included in this budget. And then, where is the total? Almost 20 million is coming from state and federal resources, actually mostly state. SB1, LPP funding, Rincon Trail ATP funding, RSTP funding, State of Good Repair, and TIRSEP funding. So all those fundings that we're getting from outside of our agency or outside of the county is included in the Measure A budget to implement the projects that are included in Measure A. So I think that's a pretty good ratio there. Okay, so this is our expenses. Thank you for moving forward without me telling you, in our Measure A program. So we do take some resources off the top for staff support, but you can see out of 41 million, 40 million is going to projects, getting things done, programs, implementing things that the Measure A was intended to implement. So I think you can see the list there. So with that, we'll move on. I just want to summarize our objective, or my objective as executive director of this agency, is to use our formula fundings that we're guaranteed to get every year to fund our core functions, the planning, the programming, and the staff that we need to implement the mission of Sbcag. The discretionary funding we use to implement projects. So, and those are competitive grants that we may not get every year, but those are like outgoing funds that we use to pay people to do what we need, what we want them to do and get things done. What we've seen this past year is our sales tax revenue is pretty stable. You know, we were afraid at the beginning of COVID that we would see a huge drop. We saw a little bit of a drop, but it came right back in September. So we are recovering well on a countywide basis as well as because of the Wayfair decision of online sales being credited to our region as well as the cannabis sales. So those increases in revenue have helped offset the impacts of COVID and made us stable. So we are projecting to have a general fund balance of 1.3 million, and this is a healthy fund balance for the general fund. And with that, we are hoping that you are able to adopt this budget and work program in May. So you'll see it on your agenda. And I'll take any other questions you may have.
All righty. Thank you very much. If anybody has a question or a comment, they can raise their hand or speak up. I don't see anybody. Okay. No discussion. Any public comment on this? Well, Director Nelson?
Just one last. Go ahead, Mr. Director Nelson. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. A question about that loan from Measure A for Clean Air Express. Is there a repayment process to that? Is it, one of those, is just a interest-free loan that we need to pay back someday? How exactly does that work?
Yes, it came out of the funding that was set aside for the Clean Air Express. So it came out of its own budget under Measure A. So it was like a loan to itself. So in the end, we may, we'll have to, the answer is probably no. We're not necessarily intending to pay it back. We just got an advance of Measure A dollars of 1.5 million to cover expenses for the Clean Air Express. Does that make sense?
I think so. Probably need to dive into it a little bit deeper offline.
Okay.
And the other comment I have was, I think whatever we come back with on the salary compensation study also needs to have, evaluating turnover as well as part of that conversation. So
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's what you're doing as well, but I know that's a big component for me when I'm evaluating compensation increases.
Sure. Thank you for the heads up, and we are working on getting that data tabulated so we can present that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hart? Did you have a comment or question?
I'm sorry, I don't have a question now. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Anybody else? I see no hands. We have no public comment on this. All righty. Again, this one was a review and comment only, therefore no action is required. We move on to the 1-minute reports. This is always fun doing Zoom with 1-minute reports. Let's see. Director Murillo, you usually have a 1-minute report. Do you have anything to tell us about? Okay. Director Perotti? Those are my two most often speakers.
I'm here.
Okay.
Sarah, I'm sorry I couldn't get to my mute button. My report is very brief. I just want to encourage everyone, if you haven't watched our video, Charlie Ebling, our Public Works Director, did a video on the state of our roads, and especially Cathedral Oaks. We get the most calls about our roads being in disrepair. And I think it was a really clear and concise educational video that really let people know the expense, how much our roads cost, and what needs to be done. And it's been very well received. It's not real long, so if you get a chance, and we put it out on all our social media sites and on our website, so if you get a chance, it's really worth reviewing and watching. Just a shout out to Charlie for a great video.
Thank you. I see Director Murillo and Director Julian. Director Murillo, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Sierra. So yesterday, the California Coastal Commission ruled on the Olive Mill Roundabout project and the San Isidro Roundabout. That remember, they were challenged by Cars Are Basic and Tom Becker. So the vote was unanimous that the issue was no substantial issue. So good news. So that means that we can continue design review and go to the city's ABR and then the county's MBAR, so the Montecito focus on body on these roundabouts. So that's good news. And I'd like to thank Michael Becker for coming to our city council last week to give us the presentation on the arena housing numbers. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Julian?
Yes, I just wanted to give an update on our COVID vaccine clinics. As you know, Johnson & Johnson is pretty much backed off right now. In coordination with the city of Guadalupe and the county and community health centers of Central Coast, we've we issued about over 1,000 vaccines. 425 of them were Pfizer. We're going to do a second one on the 26th of April, and about 665 of Johnson & Johnson. Now we know we're holding off on that as we all know, but again, we're very grateful for community health centers in the county for moving COVID screening or COVID vaccines to the city of Guadalupe. So it's going well, and we hope to continue with that.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, I've got Director Waterfield and then Director Uhrig. Director Waterfield?
Thank you. The Santa Maria City Council approved a couple of things. The short-range transit plan, which approved the recommendations, were adjusted to consider the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The adjustments include new technology for passengers to track their bus in real time, pay fares electronically, and improve route efficiency. It is anticipated that the approved recommendations will be implemented within the next 12 months. On the Proterra bus procurement update, SMAT recently ordered 2 electric buses from Proterra Bus, which are scheduled for delivery in early 2022. The new buses include advanced technology, air filters, and antimicrobial materials to provide additional measures for an even safer bus riding experience. And then we teamed up with Tesla, and we're going to have 20 charging stations at the Santa Maria Mall to make it a lot more efficient for people with electric cars to come in and have something to do when they're charging their vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Director Uhrig and then Director Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, on Monday night at our council meeting, we authorized proceeding our public works to proceed with the 1.8 mile project on South Alisal Road. And I do know that there's some Measure A funds that are being utilized for that. So I just want to thank the board for that. It's good to be able to start getting that section of Alisal Road, which is just south of the bridge of the San Ynez River Bridge, to the city and county border city limit line right there. So thank you guys for all of that. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Director Williams?
Well, I just wanted to highlight very much the need to, now that we have, despite hiccups with J&J, we have a pretty decent vaccine supply, and we want to keep the word out. We particularly want to do it to hard-to-serve populations, lower income populations. So if any of the elected officials here need some help from my staff getting together some of the opportunities. I want to just offer our services. I particularly want to make sure folks in the north are getting their share. Our stat says that only 59% of the vaccines administered in North County are going to North County residents, and I personally would think it important to try to improve that number. And so, for any of your elected officials, but particularly any of you North County ones, I'd love to offer our services to try to help get the word out or help you with information so you can get the word out to your networks.
Thank you very much, Director Williams. Buellton's been requesting some mobile vaccination since January. I'm sure sooner or later our city will get some, but thank you very much. I appreciate your input. Is there anybody else who wants to give a 1-minute report?
Chair Sierra, this is Director Hartman. I just wanted to add that the public health is organizing strike teams, but in the meantime, it's reaching out specifically to churches. If they can organize 100 to 200 people who would show up, they will come. And Bethania Church in the Valley is hosting one of those. So, and my office has been working with that. But to actually have a clinic, you need to guarantee a certain number of people will actually show up. But then in addition, there will be strike teams going out to people, elderly, for example, who are homebound, or smaller mobile home parks, things like that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Anybody else? All righty. We move on to the Executive Director's Report. Ms. Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Two of my items Director Murillo just reported on. I wanted to report on the Coastal Commission appeal process that happened Wednesday, and congratulate the city and the county for all the work that they did in working with the Coastal Commission to get that appeal, because that was very important for the project's progress. So I really appreciate the work effort that happened there. And then Michael Becker's presentation to the city council, and I heard it went really well. So thank you for having him and being available to make that presentation. He's also making a presentation to the Joint Cities and Counties Affordable Housing Task Force next Thursday. So that's another opportunity for folks to hear about the RENA process and how those numbers are being divvied up. And last but not least, I want to report on that Don Gilchrist, on behalf of Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, transmitted a request for surface transportation reauthorization member-designated project funding. That's a mouthful. For the Santa Barbara US 101 multimodal corridor project. So we are requesting funds through our Representative Carbajal, Assemblyman, and Congressman Carbajal. And so I want to thank Director Sierra, Director Hart, and Director Williams for the participation in our Federal Advocacy Day on March 26th, which set the stage for this request. So I think, we're following through, trying to be very aggressive, and trying to get more money to get the project done so we can move on to other bigger and better things. So thank you for your help and your support on all of these efforts. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. We move on to the Caltrans District Director's Report, and we are honored to have Mr. Gubbins make the presentation today. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Chair Sierra. I just have a few announcements today, and then I'd like to do an introduction if I could. But first, as Director Kern had just said, we're excited about the reauthorization and the appropriations coming up at the federal level. A lot of the guiding principles are things that we've already been doing here in California for a number of years, as well as what we've been doing locally with our strong partnership and our looking for multimodal. I think it's really going to resonate well, and I'm excited about opportunities that we have. Secondly, I know it's not in this county, but within the Central Coast, the end of January on Route 1 up near Big Sur, we had a storm damage slip out where we lost a portion of roadway. and we've been actively working on that ever since. And I'm excited to announce that we had planned to have that open as summer, as summer started, but we are going to have that paved and open to traffic this month. So in the month of April, you will be able to drive across, and that lifeline will be reconnected. And speaking of funding and partnership, we are currently working together with your staff and others on 4D and 4E segments. Especially now that the Coastal Commission has heard the appeal, we want to make sure we're working together so that the highway projects and the parallel projects can hopefully be built together. And so what we're looking at is actually being able to advance some of our money as well as bring in additional money. I don't have a final dollar amount yet because it's not finalized. We're hoping to do that in the next month or so, but we're talking tens of millions of additional dollars just to get further along with that. And what that would do would allow us to build some auxiliary lanes along with the construction of the roundabouts and other things at San Ysidro Olive Mill. And so that will really tie it together well, doing ramp improvements, and it'll let the construction process happen earlier. The fact that this board has chosen to have Mark Thomas on board and do the advanced design work together with the other agencies that are doing the other projects, it just really speaks to the partnership that the state, county, and this agency have. And we then have opportunities when these things come up, and we're able to quickly get together. So we'll more likely have more of that, more information on the exact part of that in the upcoming meetings. But I wanted you to know that it's exciting that we're able to do that. And lastly, speaking of the corridor, you do know that Scott Eads has taken over the planning deputy for the district, and you see him more often than you see me. And Dave Emerson was then acting as our corridor manager. But today we do have a new corridor manager there. And so today I would like to introduce Joe Irwin. Joe was a project manager having projects in other parts of this district. Prior to that, he was in design. He has a background with the district, and maybe if with the permission of the chair, I'd just like to see Joe is on right now. I just want everyone to know him. He's interacted with a few of you, I think, but just in the future, you'll likely see presentations on 101 from Joe. So I just wanted to give him a chance to say hello to the board.
Please.
All right. Thank you very much, Tim. Hello, and thank you for welcoming me. As a corridor manager, I'm excited to be in this position. There's a lot of momentum that we built up as a team here on the corridor. I heard it from the executive director and other board members that, we're really close. We can see the finish line, and I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to take this corridor across that finish line. And work within those partnerships that we have. We've built a lot of goodwill and relationships along with Sbcag, but with the community already. And there's a lot of commitments that we've made, and I'm honored to take that responsibility and then carry this team across the finish line and get into Santa Barbara and complete the corridor. So excited to be here. And if there's any questions, or if anybody has any concerns, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm willing to take your phone call, or we can have a chat. All right. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, and welcome. Welcome to the game, to the party, to our club. All righty. And Mr. Gubbins, does anybody have any questions, comments for our Caltrans? I don't see any. I just wanted to thank you and ask a favor. One of our last storms, we had a eucalyptus tree come down on Highway 246 on the east end of our town. Caltrans was there immediately to take it off the road and make things safe. Since then, they've come back and taken down some other eucalyptus trees in the same line that are also dangerous and dirty. And I cannot thank you enough for doing that for us. We're getting ready to apply for permits to clean up the area and put up a fence. Once the trees came down, we discovered the neighbor's backyard, and I've gotten more complaints about the neighbor's backyard than I have from the trees, actually. What I'm hoping is we can get Caltrans to come back and grind the stumps for us so that we can get the permits and get in there safely and get it looking as clean as the rest of our town. But I really wanted to thank you because those trees have been a nuisance for years, and it's truly appreciated. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Sierra. I will pass on the thanks. I do know I talked to one of your council members about that area, and I know he was talking to your city manager about making sure, the location of any walls or other improvements there. So I do not know if they've been in contact with my staff about the stumps. I will check in on that, and we'll be in contact. So thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Anybody else? All righty. Then
Madam
I move.
Chair.
Yes, Mr. Uhrig.
Yeah, I too want to echo thanks for Caltrans for that same area there. Obviously, we are very close neighbors with Buellton, and pretty much everyone that goes back and forth on that is utilizing the 246 corridor right there. So I echo the thanks and also the request to get the stump grinding done so that we can make that area of the 246 look a lot more presentable than it currently does.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Director Uhrig. And again, it was a safety hazard, and Caltrans stepped right up and took care of it for us. So thank you. Okay, moving on to committee reports. LoSAN, Director Hart.
Yeah, LoSAN had a meeting most recently, and it was just a very simple one-item agenda to approve the audit from the previous fiscal year, so there's really not much to report. Thank you.
All righty. And CalVans, Director Julian.
Yes, I'm here. Just a brief meeting. CalVans has a total of 650 active pools, 60 agencies in the waiting list. For Santa Barbara County, Lompoc has 9, Santa Maria has 40, Guadalupe has 4, Carpinteria has 2. And if Supervisor Nelson knows, along Highway 1 or 166 between here and Guadalupe, there's nothing but cars. Hopefully we can work on that because the traffic is pretty extensive. There's a special meeting this coming Monday. There's a closed session regarding some financial issues that we'll be dealing with. And as soon as that's able to publicize, I'll let this board know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any communications? No communications? With that, then, I hereby adjourn this meeting. We'll see each other next month, Thursday, May 20th, 2021, beginning at 10 a.m. Thank you all for coming. I believe we do have an executive meeting immediately after this one. So if you were on the executive committee, you got to stick around a little bit longer. Thank you all very much.